It's me, Mario! Hello!
What makes a game bad? Bad is in fact, like many things, something subjective, but that does not mean it cannot be categorized. For one, if a game sounds or looks bad, that is a problem. It may suck to say, that looks matter, but clothing do make people in the end, no matter how hard we want to deny it. I don't like how Rayman looks, and that's why I think Mario is a better game. Another big sin can be bad controls, and I specifically refer to controls not doing what you expect them to. Mario 64 in isolation isn't bad, and if you get used to it, you can control the character well. But if you come from Odyssey, those controls are shit, and it will turn many people away. Of course, bad games can also be frustrating by design. This should never be confused with the game being hard. The original Kaizo Mario is hard, but not frustrating. Kaizo blocks in that game are actually not Kaizo blocks. They are predictable and make sense, and even are used in ways that only Invis blocks could interact with the game. But how people use them in so-called Kaizo levels is just because it's funny if someone dies to it. But then there is one of the most sneaky ways the game can be bad. Something you may not even be able to realize even after you stop playing because the game just felt bad, but you don't really know why. In some games things just don't make sense. If why things in the game happen are incomprehensible, will you lose interest, as it feels as if your decisions in the end don't matter. And if you now were wondering what the thing on the bottom of the screen is, and for this I hope that I don't going to embarrass myself, but you should be able to tell what this is, despite having zero chance of reading what's shown here. And in fact I will only explain it in the description. But a hint is that there's more to it than what it looks at first sight. Of course, if we were able to understand this despite being by design unreadable, was it good design, as function reflected what it does. On the other hand, other than games that should be by all means be perfectly readable, but somehow still don't make sense. This can express itself in many ways, but I'm here for one I dislike most, and also here to show why it is bad. And this something is something we have to brainwash to think as something good, and just stop thinking about it. It is something that on base level seems not like a problem, but in reality is. And that thing is big numbers bad. Big number, go bigger. This is a saying that gained rise with idle games, and their entire identity being this motto. But what even is a big number to begin with? 10 500 euro bills, that's a lot of money. But then 1000 ordinary pencils, that's not much at all. Or is it? Right now, find a pencil, pick it up and look at it, and imagine having 1000 of those. Now, going after Google, the average pencil is 19 centimeters long and 6 millimeters wide. To get a 1 pencil long square out of these, you need to glue about 31 together. You may not have 31 pencils lying on your desk, but I'm sure that even in the age where paper gets less and less used, could you scramble together 31 pencils? Now, what do you think, how many of these squares would you need to get to 1000? The answer is that it is about 32. Still not much at all. Well, if you do the calculations, this would now add up to about 1.2 square meters. With how I now said this, did you perhaps expect more? Some could probably do 2 large steps to cover that space. Just keep in mind how wrong you were at gauging what 1000 pencils in reality are from now on. Of course, games do not intend you to count 1000 things. In the end, it's just a number on the screen. And therein lies my first argument that big numbers are bad design. If these are truly just numbers on the screen, why should they be big? In the end, is it the same if you do 1000 damage to 10,000 HP compared to 1 damage to 10 HP? All you do is create an artificial blow for no reason, and no reason is a bad reason to do something. For this I also need to address that you don't exactly do 1000 damage. You probably do more like 1187 damage. But once again, what is the difference to doing 1 damage to 10 HP enemies? Do the math. And you need to attack 10 times for the small number. And for the big number, well, 9 times 1187 is 10,683. So I guess for all that extra bloat, you saved yourself 1 attack. And oops, Now the enemy suddenly has 11,000 HP because he was designed to take 10 hits. Games are designed around what you are expected to be able to do. So if there's a case like that, you better expect that the deaths will make it so that in the end it still doesn't matter. And that gets us back to big numbers for no reason. If you want a fight to take that long, why do you need to first introduce bloat just to afterwards balance things back out? Point 2. Readability. It doesn't look like much at first, but if every stat is stat times 1 million, you still need to process the 1 million and check if it isn't 10 million. And the more random numbers there are, the longer it will take you to process that information. Even if, as discussed before, those random numbers in between most likely won't affect any gameplay. And suddenly, whoops, you picked the wrong weapon with 9,356 damage over the weapon with 11,288 damage because you misread it as 1,288 instead. That then also goes over into point 3. And you are supposed to do math with that? Let's say you have a weapon with 5,184 damage and one with 4,926. But oh wait, that last one also gives you a 5% damage increase. So that would then be with 4,926 and of course your base attack of 1,277, 310 damage increase, all the way up to a total of 6,513 compared to the stronger weapon with a total of 6,461. But with how barely it was over, that means just a decrease of 100 power would mean the stronger weapon actually was stronger. At this point, people just going to use whatever has a higher number, or what the internet says. Any player should be able to do informed decisions about gameplay without the use of a calculator. Big number go bigger. In this case meant people will not even bother to engage with the game mechanics, as there was never a chance to begin with to understand what is going on. Now point 4.
We're not so different, you and I.
If you honestly tell me you actually do fast correct maths with bigger numbers than 100, I will laugh at you. Remember that pencil case. Our brains are ass at doing anything with numbers probably already past 20. We are not made to deal with these numbers. And as we let it be done by the machine anyways, nowadays will that also never change. You don't choose that weapon with 5,184 is better than a weapon with 4,926 because it is 258 stronger. You choose it because 5 is bigger than 4. That is exactly why we struggle so hard once we can't comprehend the digit amount anymore, as you never compare the numbers but only the smallest amount of digits at the front possible. And once you no longer can say if two numbers have the same digit count, it mostly is just hoping that they have the same amount. Point 5. Big number lie to you. This gets most apparent in games that just slap zeros at the end. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a great example, as technically monsters have around an average stat of 2,500. And you technically have 8,000 lives. And if said like that, it seems like so much when compared to MTG having only an average of 2 stats with only 20 lives. But listen closely, you have in Yu-Gi-Oh! 8,000 and things have 2,500 stats. Those numbers have the same factor of 10. That means in Yu-Gi-Oh! You have 4 effective lives, where in MTG and thankfully numbers already are as small as possible, so you are perfectly equipped in dealing with them, and 20 divided by 2 is 10. That's easy math, and there aren't any tricks here. So Yu-Gi-Oh! Sounds like you have more life, but in fact you have less than half the life you have in MTG. Your brain just thinks there are more lives because bigger number. And as said, are we ass at comprehending big numbers. In my last part before the conclusion, part 6, are we getting stronger? The motto of big number go bigger implies that it feels good to increase stats, but think about it. They never actually give you that Pokemon-like level up screen in most games, and that is for a reason. The numbers don't mean anything to you, so all you would see is some number getting increased by some amount. On the other hand, have we this mechanic from Mario and Luigi series, a series that does show you the level ups, and then on top gives you a wheel to randomly be able to increase the stat of your choice by a random amount, partially influenced by you stopping the wheel well. Now I don't think you can actually perfectly time it to get what you want, but then All the more does it feel amazing when you normally get +1s to your 20 attack and suddenly you hit that +5, 25% of your max power. Now that's an increase, but in reality you just gained a tenth of this super good roll compared to what other games give you per level up all the time. Still, that 5 is bigger than getting +50 to your 727, as you instantly can recognize the comparative value of 5 and 22. We now can go on to the final part. Big numbers make games feel random. If you are by design bad at predicting what the information given by a game means and just play by vibes, will you not understand when things go wrong. I was playing here Touhou Lost World, showing one of the hardest challenges they have yet put out. Using the unit they designed the challenge around, so you pull for it. I'm not going to explain how combat exactly works, but it is really interesting, with the exception of this. These are me 2 times doing the exact same thing, and if not me having this recording to be able to stop time, would I not even remotely be able to see just how big of a gap there can be due to a random range factor in damage. Of course I know it's there, but until now I did not know just how massive this is, as the numbers are so big that your brain wouldn't know how to even begin calculations with them. This now terms means when you auto battles where you no longer can do micro adjustments fail, you probably weren't there to see what happens. And even if you see it, do you really understand where the issue lies? And now, just ask yourself at what place was the inconsistency. Normally, you could just make sure to massively overshoot the damage you need, but I'm already using what you are supposed to use and just barely are able to get enough damage. So that option simply doesn't exist. You don't have the ability to do the math to figure out where the issue could lie, and therefore it is the same as if a random place just breaks. Then we have games like Reverse 1999, where they didn't even bother to show you HP stats, because numbers, may they be far more reasonable, are still so massive that you get more information out of guessing how much percentage of the HP removed, overseeing the numbers, which leads then to situations where you see the enemy almost dead, do a weak attack to finish him off, and he survives because almost dead was still more than the attack you use, as your estimation was based on just guessing that it probably would be enough, with no way of figuring out accurately if that was the case. I want to mention that these things are just one small part of a game, and therefore can't ruin the game experience, and I know that, but why do I even need to guess if I could possibly do enough damage? There is in fact a way of doing it differently. Paper Mario and Fire Emblem both are series that always had starting you with doing single digit damage. It ended with you, for Paper Mario possibly still doing single digit damage, while Fire Emblem it goes up to double digits on the final fight of the game. But you still do damage in a range where you can quickly math things out in your head. In Paper Mario that leads to people easily creating threads based around knowing exactly how much they need to do and how much they can do. And for Fire Emblem, well, the entire game wouldn't really work on high difficulties if you couldn't do calculations in your head, as the devs know that you are able to do this math easily, are they allowed to force you to predict how combat will go exactly. This then leads to extremely satisfying gameplay, as all your plans will always work. There isn't I overlooked a percentile of damage because of an extra 12 HP an enemy had in addition to the 1600 damage you accounted for when playing on the only reasonable way possible, just ignoring all the junk added at the end. There's nothing wrong with you being forced to do combat by vibes. I mean, despite Pokemon having low enough numbers to be reasonable, do you not see how much damage you do and have to go off a feeling on how much damage you did, accounting for the random element in damage cut, and then decide how to proceed. But don't be fooled that pro players wouldn't use numbers as much as they can. From the damage they take and the percentile they do guesstimate EVs. And from that, how much damage they do. All only doable because stats are low enough for humans to do math with them. But please just don't do this when there's a random factor and limited resources, making it so that you can lose because you couldn't estimate what actions you should take. Big numbers are bad because you neither could comprehend them nor will you even bother to try. That makes them unnecessary. and if something unnecessary is added, that decreases how good a game is. And ultimately, is it also far more satisfying if numbers are in the human range, as you not only get satisfaction from events panning out just as you planned, but that plus 5 attack you're not going to get when numbers aren't small enough for it.